Prince Caravan paced the grand chamber of the Valorian High Council. His blue skin had taken on a pale hue, and his normally bright golden eyes appeared dim with worry. The 7-foot-tall alien ruler stopped before the central holographic display, his ornate robes swirling around his lean frame. "Play the message again," he commanded, his voice breaking slightly. The air shimmered, and the image of his daughter appeared. Princess Lyra was bound to a metal chair, her silver hair disheveled, and her violet eyes wide with fear. A shadowy figure stood behind her, only their gloved hand visible as it rested on her shoulder. "Father," she said, her voice steadied, despite her obvious distress. "I am alive, but my captors are serious. They demand the surrender of the Trellis, Moran, and Vega star systems. You have 15 planetary rotations to comply, or they will." She paused, swallowing hard. "They say they will execute me and broadcast it across all frequencies." The message ended, and silence fell over the room. The 12 council members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Caravan turned to face them, his fists clenched. "Our intelligence confirms this transmission came from the Centauri system," said General Drax, the head of Valorian military forces. "Princess Lyra's diplomatic vessel was attacked during its return journey. All guards were killed. Initial evidence points to Draken involvement." "The Draken deny responsibility," countered Ambassador Mala, her tentacled hands moving in agitation. "Their high commander claims this is the work of rogue elements." "Of course they deny it." Caravan slammed his fist on the table. "They've wanted our territories for centuries." Elder Zorix, the oldest member of the council, cleared his throat. "We cannot send our forces into Draken space without triggering all-out war, a war we might not win. So we abandon my daughter, the future ruler of our people." Caravan's voice rose in anger. "No, my prince," Zorix said softly. "But we need a different approach. Our deep space scouts have recently made a fascinating discovery, a species from a small planet called Earth. These humans lack our technology, but they possess remarkable adaptability and resourcefulness." The council chamber erupted with objections, but Zorix raised his hand for silence. "Our observation of their species shows they excel at covert operations and unconventional warfare. Their planet is unknown to the Draken. A single human agent could go where our forces cannot." "A primitive alien to rescue my daughter?" Caravan asked incredulously. Admiral Vex, head of the scout fleet, stepped forward. "My prince, we have been monitoring their communications and military activities. Some of their warriors show exceptional promise. One in particular caught our attention." The holographic display changed to show a rugged human male with short brown hair and determined eyes. He moved with precision through what appeared to be a training exercise, outperforming others around him. "His name is Jack Hudson," Vex explained. "Former elite warrior in his society, now working independently. His combat skills and problem-solving abilities are remarkable for his species. One human against the might of the Draken." Caravan's doubt was clear. "Sometimes, my prince," Zorix said quietly, "a single knife in the dark accomplishes what an army in daylight cannot." Caravan stared at the image of the human, considering the impossible choice before him. Risk interstellar war or place his daughter's life in the hands of an alien from an undeveloped world. "Prepare a scout ship," he finally ordered. "If this human is as capable as you claim, I want him brought here immediately. We have less than 15 rotations to save my daughter and prevent war." As the council members hurried to carry out his orders, Caravan looked once more at the frozen image of his captive daughter. "Hold on, Lyra," he whispered. "Help is coming from the most unlikely place." Jack Hudson sat by the edge of Blue Pine Lake, fishing rod in hand, enjoying the peaceful Montana sunset. At 42, his face showed the lines of a man who had seen too much during his 15 years as a Navy SEAL. His broad shoulders still carried the strength of his military days, though his brown hair now had streaks of gray at the temples. The calm water suddenly began to ripple. Jack frowned as his fishing line trembled. It wasn't a fish. The entire lake was shaking. A high-pitched whine filled the air, growing louder until Jack had to cover his ears. "What the hell?" he muttered, standing up and backing away from the water's edge. The sky above the lake split open with brilliant blue light. Jack squinted against the glare as a sleek silver craft descended, hovering 10 feet above the water. It was about the size of a small bus, with no visible engines or wings. The craft slowly moved toward the shore and settled silently on the grass nearby. Jack's hand automatically reached for the pistol he no longer carried. He considered running to his cabin for his shotgun, but found himself frozen in place as a section of the craft's hull slid open. A ramp extended to the ground. A tall figure emerged from the light. Jack stared in disbelief at the being that approached him. It looked almost human, but stood nearly 7 feet tall with blue skin that shimmered slightly in the fading daylight. Its eyes were solid gold with no visible pupils, and it wore what appeared to be some kind of uniform made of flowing silver material. "Jack Hudson." The being spoke in perfect English, its voice carrying an odd musical quality. "I am Ambassador Trell of the Valorian Empire. We require your assistance in a matter of grave importance." Jack took a step back. "How do you know my name?" "We have been observing your planet for some time," Trell replied calmly. "Our interest is peaceful. We selected you specifically based on your military record and psychological profile." "Selected me? For what exactly?" Jack's mind raced through possibilities, none of them comforting. Trell's expression grew somber. "Our princess has been abducted by a hostile force. Our intelligence suggests she is being held on a heavily guarded facility in enemy territory. A direct military approach would trigger an interstellar war that would cost billions of lives." The ambassador raised his 6-fingered hand, and a holographic image appeared between them. A young female alien with silver hair and violet eyes, bound and clearly in distress. "Princess Lyra is not only royalty, but the rightful heir to the Valorian throne. Her father, Prince Caravan, authorized this mission to seek your help." Jack ran his hand through his hair. "Look, I'm sorry about your princess, but this is crazy. I'm retired, and I'm pretty sure I'm hallucinating this whole conversation." "You are not hallucinating, Jack Hudson. We need someone who can infiltrate hostile territory undetected. Someone resourceful, adaptable, and skilled in combat. Someone not connected to Valorian politics. Someone like you." "Why me? Why not your own people?" "Valorians are known throughout the galaxy. The enemy would detect us immediately. Earth is unknown to them. You would be the perfect unexpected variable." Jack laughed, a harsh sound lacking humor. "So you want me to go to another planet and rescue an alien princess from hostile aliens? This isn't a movie." Trell's golden eyes grew serious. "If Princess Lyra dies, war between our empire and the Draken Collective is inevitable. Such a conflict would eventually reach Earth. Your planet would be caught in the crossfire." Jack stared at the alien, searching for signs of deception. Finding none, he sighed heavily. "I'll listen to what you have to say," he said finally, "but I'm not promising anything." Trell nodded. "That is all we ask for now. Will you come aboard so we may discuss this further?" Jack stood inside the Valorian scout ship, surrounded by technology beyond anything he had ever seen. The walls seemed alive with flowing patterns of light, and what looked like liquid metal formed into chairs and control panels before his eyes. Ambassador Trell gestured for Jack to sit in a chair that materialized from the floor. "This vessel will take us to our main ship in orbit around your Earth," Trell explained as he touched a glowing symbol on the wall. Jack felt a slight pressure as the ship rose smoothly. Through a transparent section of the hull, he watched his cabin grow smaller until it disappeared among the trees. Within minutes, the blue sky darkened to black, and Earth curved below them, a beautiful blue marble wrapped in wisps of white cloud. "My God," Jack whispered, momentarily forgetting his skepticism. Ahead of them floated a massive ship that looked like an elongated diamond, gleaming silver against the darkness of space. The scout ship approached an opening that appeared in the larger vessel's side and slipped smoothly inside. When they disembarked, Jack was met by a delegation of Valorians. At the front stood a regal figure whose ornate robes and commanding presence marked him as a leader. "Jack Hudson of Earth, I am Prince Caravan," the Valorian said, his golden eyes reflecting desperation despite his formal tone. "Thank you for agreeing to hear our proposal." They moved to a large circular room where a detailed holographic display dominated the center. Jack watched in amazement as three-dimensional star systems, planets, and spaceships floated in the air. "The situation is complex," Caravan began. "Our empire has been in a cold war with the Draken Collective for generations. The Draken are a militaristic species who believe in conquest as their right." The display showed reptilian beings with scaled skin and prominent ridges along their skulls. "3 days ago, my daughter's diplomatic vessel was attacked while returning from a peace conference. All her guards were killed, and Princess Lyra was taken." The hologram changed to show a desolate moon orbiting a gas giant. A structure resembling a mining facility was highlighted. "Our intelligence places her here, on Xerxes 9, an abandoned mining moon in Draken territory. The kidnappers demand we surrender 3 star systems within 15 days, or they will execute her." Jack studied the holographic facility. "If you know where she is, why not send in your military?" A female Valorian in what appeared to be a military uniform stepped forward. "I am Captain Laura Bailey, Tactical Commander. Any Valorian force entering Draken space would be detected immediately. It would be seen as an act of war, giving the Draken the excuse they've been waiting for to launch a full-scale attack." "The Draken government officially denies involvement," added Caravan. "They claim this is the work of extremists, but we suspect their military is behind it." "So you want to send me in alone?" Jack asked incredulously. "One human against what sounds like an entire military base." "Not entirely alone," Laura said. "We would provide you with equipment, intelligence, and communication support. I would be your handler, guiding you remotely." Trell approached with a small device. "This shows what we offer Earth in return for your help. Technology to solve your energy crisis, medical advances to cure diseases your science hasn't conquered, and agricultural methods to end hunger." Jack looked at the images on the device, then back at the alien faces around him. "And if I refuse?" Caravan's face darkened. "Then my daughter dies, and war begins. A war that will eventually consume many worlds, including Earth." Jack ran his hand over his face. "This is insane." "We understand this is overwhelming," Laura said quietly. "But you were chosen for your adaptability and resourcefulness, qualities we believe make humans special." Jack stared at the holographic image of the princess, thinking of all the impossible missions he'd undertaken during his SEAL career. None compared to this. "When would I leave?" he asked finally. "As soon as you are prepared," Caravan answered, hope flickering in his eyes. Jack took a deep breath. "Then I guess we'd better get started." Jack's body ached as he collapsed onto the mat. 3 weeks of training aboard the Valorian flagship had pushed him beyond any limits he'd faced in SEAL training. Captain Laura Bailey stood over him, her blue skin glistening with exertion, a satisfied smile on her face. "Your adaptation rate is impressive for a human," she said, offering her 6-fingered hand to help him up. "Your physical strength exceeds our average warrior, though your reflexes still need work." "Thanks, I think," Jack grunted, accepting her help. At 6'2", he was still dwarfed by the Valorian captain's 7-foot frame. The training room hummed with alien technology. Holographic Draken soldiers appeared and disappeared around them, part of the combat simulation Jack had just completed. The walls could reconfigure to create different environments, from urban corridors to dense jungles. "The neural translator is functioning correctly?" Laura asked, touching the small device behind Jack's ear. "Yeah, works perfectly. I understand everything you say, though some concepts still feel strange." Laura nodded. "The device doesn't just translate words but adapts concepts to your human understanding. It will help you navigate Draken systems and understand their security protocols." A door slid open, and Chief Engineer Zorn entered. The older Valorian carried what looked like a folded piece of cloth. "The adaptive camouflage suit is ready," Zorn announced, handing the material to Jack. It felt like silk, but somehow stronger, with a subtle pattern that shifted as he turned it in his hands. "This will help you blend into any environment," Zorn explained. "It responds to both mental commands through the neural translator and automatically adapts to surroundings." Jack slipped the suit on over his training clothes. Immediately, the material conformed to his body like a second skin. "Think of a color or pattern," Zorn instructed. Jack thought of pine forest camouflage, and instantly the suit changed to match the pattern he'd imagined. He whistled in appreciation. "And your weapons are prepared as well," Zorn continued, gesturing to a wall that slid open to reveal an array of equipment. Jack approached the display, examining each item. There was a knife with a blade that could apparently change its molecular structure to cut through different materials, a pistol-like weapon that fired energy pulses rather than bullets, and various devices he couldn't even begin to understand. "We've modified everything to be operable with human hands," Zorn said. "The weapons are untraceable to Earth technology should you be captured." Laura stepped forward. "Tomorrow you'll begin the final phase of preparation, studying Draken behavioral patterns and facility layouts. You need to be able to predict how they'll react in any situation." "What about the princess?" Jack asked. "What should I expect when I find her?" A new hologram appeared, showing Princess Lyra in detail. She was beautiful in an alien way, with delicate silver markings on her blue skin and eyes that shimmered with violet light. "Princess Lyra is highly intelligent," Laura explained. "She speaks 17 galactic languages and has been trained in self-defense, though not combat. She will cooperate with rescue efforts but may be weakened from captivity." "The extraction plan." "We'll drop you approximately 3 kilometers from the facility," Laura said, bringing up a map. "You'll infiltrate, locate the princess, and proceed to the extraction point on the eastern ridge. A small scout ship will be waiting, cloaked from Draken sensors." Jack studied the map, committing it to memory. Time frame. "You'll have approximately 6 hours before planetary rotation brings Draken patrol ships within detection range of our cloaked vessel." Later that night, alone in his quarters, Jack sat on the edge of his bed, turning his old Navy SEAL challenge coin over in his fingers, the only item from Earth he brought with him. The enormity of what he was attempting finally hit him. One human, about to infiltrate an alien facility on a distant moon to rescue a princess. "Just another day at the office," he muttered to himself, trying to quiet the doubt in his mind. Jack crouched behind a ridge of dark purple rock, surveying the mining facility through specialized binoculars. Xerxes IX's surface was barren and cold, with a thin atmosphere that his Valorian-designed breathing mask filtered easily. 2 moons hung in the alien sky, casting eerie shadows across the landscape. The facility sprawled before him, its metal structures jutting from the rocky terrain like the skeleton of some massive beast. Draken guards patrolled the perimeter, their scaled bodies covered in segments of black armor. Each carried what Laura had identified as pulse rifles, weapons that could reduce a human to ash in seconds. "I count 16 guards on the outer perimeter," Jack whispered into his communication device. "Patrol patterns match your intelligence." "Confirmed," Laura's voice replied through his earpiece. "Thermal scans indicate approximately 30 life forms inside the main structure. Most are concentrated in the northern and central sections." Jack activated his adaptive camouflage suit, which immediately changed to match the purplish-black rocks around him. He moved forward, staying low, his movements careful and deliberate. He reached the facility's outer wall without incident. Using a device Zorn had given him, he scanned for security systems. Small red points appeared in his vision, highlighting sensor nodes and alarm triggers. "They'd upgraded security since our last scan," Jack muttered. "There's a new sensor grid on the western wall." "Can you bypass it?" Laura asked. Jack studied the pattern. "Yes, but I'll need to go in through the ventilation system instead of the maintenance door. He moved to a recessed vent shaft, cutting through the metal grate with his molecular knife. The blade sliced through the alien alloy with almost no resistance. Inside, the shaft was narrower than human designs would be, forcing Jack to squeeze through uncomfortably. The Draken, despite their large size, were surprisingly flexible. He navigated by memory from the facility layouts he'd studied, eventually reaching a junction above what should be a storage area. Peering through a grate, he saw crates marked with symbols he recognized as Draken military designations, but something was wrong. Mixed among them were containers with markings from at least 3 other species. "Laura, I'm seeing equipment from multiple factions here," he whispered. "Centaurian weapon crates, what looks like Mavorian communication gear, and something with Krell markings." There was a pause before Laura responded, her voice concerned. "That's unexpected. The Krell are isolationists who rarely interact with other species, and the Mavorians are technically Valorian allies. This isn't a simple kidnapping," Jack concluded. "Someone's putting together a coalition." He continued through the vents until reaching the section identified as the detention area. Below him, 2 guards stood outside a reinforced door. They weren't Draken, but a species Jack recognized from his briefings as Centaurian mercenaries, humanoid with 4 arms and mottled green skin. "Since when do the Draken outsource their security?" he whispered. "They don't," Laura replied, her concern evident. "Something is very wrong here." Jack waited until the guards rotated positions, then dropped silently from the vent. His modified stun weapon discharged with barely a sound, dropping both mercenaries before they could react. Using an access code provided by Valorian intelligence, he opened the cell door. Inside, Princess Lyra sat on a simple bed, her silver hair dull and her blue skin pale. She looked up, eyes widening in confusion at the sight of a human. "Who are you?" she asked in perfect English, surprising Jack. "What species are you?" "Jack Hudson, human, from Earth," he replied, keeping his voice low. "Your father sent me to get you out of here." Lyra studied him skeptically. "A single rescuer. From an unknown species. Sometimes one is better than many," Jack said, offering his hand. "We don't have much time." The princess hesitated, then stood. "There's something you need to know. This isn't what it appears to be. My abduction, it wasn't the Draken." "Then who?" Jack asked. Before she could answer, an alarm blared through the facility. "We've been compromised," Jack said, drawing his weapon. "Explanations will have to wait." Red alarm lights flashed as Jack pulled Princess Lyra toward the door. The wailing siren echoed through the metal corridors of the mining facility. Jack checked both directions before urging her into the hallway. "We need to move fast," he said, handing her the stun weapon from one of the fallen guards. "Do you know how to use this?" Lyra took the weapon with surprising confidence. "Point and discharge. I've had basic defense training." Jack raised an eyebrow, but said nothing. They moved quickly through the corridor, the princess keeping pace despite her obvious weakness from captivity. Her silver hair was tied back hastily, and her once elegant clothes were now dirty and torn. "The extraction point is on the eastern ridge," Jack explained as they ducked into a side room to avoid a patrol of rushing guards. "We have a cloaked ship waiting, but we need to reach it within the next." He checked the alien timepiece on his wrist. 52 minutes before Draken patrol ships arrive. "We won't make it that way," Lyra said, pointing to a facility map on the wall. "They'll have the main exits covered immediately. But there's a secondary loading dock for mining equipment on the lower level." "That wasn't in our intelligence," Jack frowned. "It wouldn't be. It was abandoned years ago when they depleted the eastern seam," Lyra explained. "I overheard the guards talking about it." Jack contacted Laura. "Change of plans. We're heading for a lower-level loading dock. Can you redirect the extraction team?" Static crackled in his ear. "Signal. Breaking up. Facility jamming." Laura's voice faded. "They're blocking communications," Jack muttered. "We're on our own." They made their way down through the facility, encountering less resistance than Jack expected. Most of the security forces seemed to be heading upward, toward the main level where they had originally been. They don't know I'm gone yet, Lyra realized. They must think the alarm is for an external breach. They reached a massive door that hadn't been used in years, its control panel dark. No power, Jack said, examining the door. We'll need to find another way. Not necessarily. Lyra knelt by the panel, removing its cover with practiced ease. She manipulated something inside, and suddenly the panel lit up. Basic engineering was part of my education. Jack stared at her with newfound respect as the massive door groaned open. Beyond it lay a tunnel leading out to the moon's surface. You're full of surprises, Princess. They had traveled about halfway through the tunnel when they heard shouts behind them. A group of guards had discovered their escape route. Run, Jack urged, pushing Lyra ahead while he turned to face their pursuers. Using his adapted Valorian weapon, he fired at the tunnel ceiling, causing a partial collapse that temporarily blocked the guards' advance. But the obstruction wouldn't hold them for long. They emerged onto the surface to find themselves on the opposite side of the facility from their planned extraction point. The eastern ridge was visible, but impossibly far given their time frame. Laura, if you can hear me, we're at the western mining entrance. Jack tried his communicator again. Nothing but static replied. A Draken transport ship sat on a nearby landing pad, its engines idle. Can you fly that? Lyra asked. Jack looked at her in surprise. That's what I was going to ask you. I'm a diplomat, not a pilot, she said with a hint of frustration. Jack studied the ship. It was similar to ones he practiced with in simulation during his training, but with key differences. I might be able to get it airborne, he said doubtfully. Behind them, the sounds of pursuit grew louder as guards began clearing the tunnel collapse. It's our only option, Lyra said. And Jack, I think I can help. The neural translator you're wearing. It contains basic Draken ship operation protocols. I recognized the model when they put it on you. They raced to the transport. Jack sliced through the access panel with his molecular knife, and the door hissed open. Inside, the cockpit was a confusing array of alien controls, but as Lyra had suggested, the neural translator began feeding information directly to his brain. I think I can do this, he said with growing confidence as his hands moved to the correct controls almost instinctively. The first guards emerged from the tunnel as the transport's engines roared to life. Energy blasts struck the ship's hull as Jack lifted off, the vessel shuddering but holding together. Can you contact your father's ship from here? Jack asked, as the transport climbed into Xerxes 9's thin atmosphere. If I can access the communication system, Lyra said, already examining the console. But Jack, there's something important you need to know about who really kidnapped me. The Draken transport shuddered as Jack pushed it beyond its design speed limits. Space opened before them, a vast darkness punctuated by distant stars and the looming gas giant that Xerxes 9 orbited. Warning lights flashed across the alien control panel as the ship's engines strained. We've got pursuit, Jack announced, checking the rear sensors. 2 Draken fighters, closing fast. Princess Lyra worked furiously at the communication console, her slender blue fingers dancing across the controls with surprising expertise. I almost have it, she said. The system is fighting me. But her voice cut off as she finally looked up at Jack, her violet eyes reflecting a mix of fear and determination. Jack, I need to tell you something critical. My abduction wasn't carried out by the Draken. A blast rocked the ship, sending Lyra stumbling against the bulkhead. Jack corrected their course, diving the transport toward the swirling clouds of the gas giant to use its electromagnetic interference as cover. Kind of busy right now, Princess, he grunted, executing a maneuver that briefly shook off one of their pursuers. Who was it then? Members of my father's own government, she said, her voice steady despite the gravity of her words. High Commander Vrex and his faction. They want war with the Draken. They'd been planning it for years. Jack's hands froze momentarily on the controls. Your father's people kidnapped you. Not my father. He knows nothing of this. It's the war faction within our military. They needed something to unite our people against the Draken, something that would justify a full-scale invasion. Lyra's voice hardened. What better than the abduction and execution of the heir to the throne? Another blast hit them, this one damaging one of the engine pods. The ship lurched to one side. I discovered their plan during my diplomatic mission. Lyra continued, bracing herself against the console. I found evidence of Valorian weapons being planted in Draken territory. False flag operations, everything needed to fabricate a reason for war. When I announced I was returning to present my findings to the Council, they arranged my abduction. If what you're saying is true, then, Jack began. Then the extraction team waiting for us isn't an extraction team at all. Lyra finished grimly. It's an assassination squad. They can't let either of us live to tell what we know. Jack processed this information as he continued evasive maneuvers. It explained the mixed species equipment he'd seen, the unusual security arrangements, the mercenaries instead of Draken guards. I have proof, Lyra added, pulling a small data crystal from a hidden pocket in her clothing. Recordings of their meetings, transfer orders for weapons, communication logs, everything needed to expose the conspiracy. The ship rocked again as another blast struck. The engine warning turned from yellow to red. We can't keep this up much longer, Jack warned. We need a plan B. Lyra finally managed to activate the communication system, but rather than contacting the Valorian flagship, she entered a different frequency. What are you doing? Jack asked. Something desperate, she admitted. Contacting the actual Draken High Command. The people who are shooting at us right now. They're shooting at an unidentified stolen transport, Lyra corrected. They don't know who we are yet. A harsh, reptilian face appeared on the communication screen. The Draken commander's scales flushed red with anger as he recognized Lyra. Princess Lyra of Valoria, the commander hissed. You have violated Draken space and stolen Draken property. Commander Krill. Lyra addressed him with formal respect. I am not your enemy. I have evidence that elements within my own government orchestrated my abduction to frame your people and justify war. I request emergency asylum and a direct meeting with your High Council. The Draken's expression shifted from anger to suspicion. What proof do you offer? Lyra transmitted a portion of the data crystal's contents. Long seconds passed as the commander reviewed it, his reptilian features unreadable. Finally, he spoke. Cease your evasive actions. You will be escorted to our command station. Any deviation will result in your immediate destruction. The pursuing fighters moved into escort positions beside them. Jack looked at Lyra uncertainly. Can we trust them? No, she said honestly. But right now, they're our only hope of surviving long enough to expose the truth. The damaged transport limped toward the Draken command station, a massive structure orbiting the gas giant. Jack and Lyra exchanged a look of shared resolve. They had escaped one trap only to fly directly into what might be another. Jack stood tall beside Princess Lyra in the grand meeting chamber of the Draken High Council. 10 days had passed since their desperate flight to the Draken command station. The room was imposing, with high ceilings and walls of polished black stone. 7 Draken leaders sat on elevated seats facing them, their scaled faces impassive. Across the chamber stood Prince Caravan with a small delegation of Valorians, including Captain Laura Bailey. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with Jack's molecular knife. We have reviewed the evidence provided by Princess Lyra, announced High Commander Krill, his deep voice echoing through the chamber. The recordings, documents, and weapons transfers all point to a conspiracy orchestrated by elements within the Valorian military. Prince Caravan stepped forward, his face a mask of controlled rage. The conspirators have been arrested. High Commander Vrex and 12 senior officers are now in custody awaiting trial for treason. He looked at his daughter with a mixture of pride and sorrow. Had it not been for my daughter's courage and the unexpected assistance of this human, our empires might now be at war. Jack shifted uncomfortably under the collective gaze of the alien leaders. He wore a formal Valorian outfit provided for the occasion, though he had insisted on keeping his own boots. Jack Hudson of Earth, the Draken leader, addressed him directly. Your species was unknown to us until now, yet you have demonstrated remarkable abilities and judgment. Your planet has earned the attention of the galactic community. I just did what anyone would do, Jack replied simply. Commander Krill's scales rippled in what Jack had learned was the Draken equivalent of laughter. I doubt that very much. Our intelligence suggests humans are uniquely adaptable among known species. Princess Lyra stepped forward. In the days since their rescue, she had recovered her strength. Now dressed in formal Valorian attire, her silver hair elaborately styled, she radiated authority. This event presents an unprecedented opportunity, she declared. For generations, our empires have regarded each other with suspicion and hostility. Perhaps now we can forge a different path. A bold proposal followed. A joint Valorian-Draken commission to investigate remaining elements of the conspiracy, cultural exchange programs, and, most significantly, the establishment of a neutral zone between their territories to be jointly administered. As the two sides discussed details, Jack found himself standing beside Laura. You knew, didn't you? He asked quietly, about the possibility of Valorian involvement. Laura nodded slightly. I had suspicions. There were inconsistencies in our intelligence, but I couldn't be certain, and I couldn't risk discussing it over communications that might be monitored by the conspirators. That's why you trained me so intensively on distinguishing different alien species and their equipment. Yes, she admitted. I hope you would notice what I couldn't openly tell you to look for. The formal discussions concluded with the signing of preliminary agreements. The first peace treaty between the Valorian Empire and the Draken Collective in over 200 years. Afterward, Prince Caravan approached Jack privately. Earth has unwittingly provided us with a valuable service, he said. It seems only fair that your planet should benefit from this new era of cooperation. The prince outlined what this would mean. Formal diplomatic recognition of Earth by both major powers, technology exchange programs, and protection from less friendly species who might view humanity as easy prey. And what role do you see for me in all this? Jack asked. Earth will need its first interstellar diplomat, Caravan replied. Someone who understands both human and alien perspectives. Someone who has already earned the respect of multiple species. Jack looked across the room to where Princess Lyra was deep in conversation with Draken officials. She caught his eye and smiled briefly before returning to her diplomatic work. I'm just a soldier, Jack said doubtfully. You were a soldier, Caravan corrected. Now you are something much rarer, a bridge between worlds. 3 days later, Jack stood in the observation deck of the Valorian flagship, watching as Earth grew larger in the viewport. Home looked both familiar and strangely different after everything he had experienced. Ready to return? Princess Lyra asked, joining him at the viewport. Not exactly, Jack admitted. How do you explain to people that everything they thought they knew about the universe has changed? You don't explain it all at once, she said wisely. You show them, step by step, star by star. As the blue planet filled the viewport, Jack thought about the incredible journey ahead, not just for him, but for all of humanity. Earth was no longer alone in the cosmos. Its first reluctant ambassador was bringing it into a much larger community, for better or worse. One step at a time, then, he agreed, as the ship began its descent toward a world that would never be the same again.